during the week, and then working at the TV station on the weekends. And I did that probably for about a year or so. So very tough times, you know, being a person straight out of college and you're working like 7 days a week. But the assignment desk editor is really like the nucleus of the newsroom. It's where you sit and listen to all of the scanners, and you're dispatching reporters to their stories. You're gathering information for producers. And so you're constantly putting out information. So I did that. Also during my time, I think this was actually radio station was my first job. And then I got a job at
we're having trouble again. Your video dropped out, so I'm going to have to bring it back up again.
That was last week's talk.
Oh, I don't know what's happening. There's, like I said, there's always something. Hopefully we can get this going now properly. Oops. Okay, I think since we've had so much trouble with everything else, I'm not going to bother with the disclaimer. I'm just going to start the recording. So here is Juliet Hills reading her poetry from the First Unitarian Society in Milwaukee.
Good morning. I give great thanks to Jean Johnson and to Jim Spice for enabling this to be recorded in church. So I'm lucky that I was able to come here and step into our building and feel right at home. And welcome to all of you, to me and to poetry and to the forum. I'm going to start with a poem that actually rhymes. Not all of my poems rhyme. And this one is about the backyard, which is a place I see a lot of because I live alone. That's where I have double glass doors overlooking a wild garden, and it's part of it's wild because I don't do anything, and part of it's wild because I want it to be wild. So this is the first poem to read you. It's called Welcome Home. Welcome fox, welcome wren, eat your fill, come again. Dip in the bird bath, my chirpy cock sparrow, nip all the bright yellow blooms on the yarrow. Chamomile too, and what's left of the clovers, quickly before that old Cooper's hawk hovers. Gone is the skunk, leaving only a whiff.
Hey, we don't have any sound.
Mark, did you mute everybody, including Juliet?
Northampton.
Is it coming through now?
And the assignment we were given in that writing group was to write for 10 minutes,
Yes.
taking the first and last line of a poem by a famous poet. Now, at that time, I didn't know who had written these lines, and I chose "The Frost Performs Its Secret Ministry" and "A Shining of the Moon" at the end, "Shining of a Silver Moon," I think, something like that. So it turns out that it's from a poem called "Frost at Midnight" by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. But my poem is not a gentle poem like his. Mine took me by surprise when I finished it and read it. I was quite surprised that I had it in me, because it reads more like Ted Hughes, who's a kind of a brutish poet. So this is called The Black Horse. It's named for an imaginary pub with a pub sign hanging outside called The Black Horse. And I refer to browning people off, which is making them fed up. I refer to eider, which is a duck whose breast feathers used to be used for filling quilts, which in England are called eiderdowns. And I refer to haws, which are the same as rose hips, only they're on non-roses. Hawthorns have haws, and that's why it's called the hawthorn. So, with no further explanation, here is the black horse. The frost performs its secret ministry, killing the haws by the simple act of browning them off like a bored child or a gall wasp eating the heart out. Under this gaze of my personal Orion, his rapier glinting, lit by the weak batteries of stars long dead, the weasel scouts along the crusting leaf mold. Scream upon echo upon slash, the new hare late in the litter is snatched and raised to unexpected heights, stabbed by the clamps of the silent raptor. Soon the pelt sags across the limb, like Dali's clock stopping time, and soon to be stiffened, like the frozen dishcloth late on the line. The whiff of ice drifts as slow as the glacier that breathed it out. The corner face of the night map, blowing its ill wind to mark the turn of the season under the lamp quietly shining. In the silent moon, a face may smile, but these dirty clouds smother all warm hopes, and it's no wonder we dive under, glad to huddle under eider, while the pump trough's water turns to a useless block, blackened, hard, too rough to glint, and mocking the thirsty horse looking down from the swinging sign. His painter, rider, blacksmith, all beneath one hoary blanket lie in yew shadows, nearby in a grey corner where shines the priest within, the host filling the silver pattern. The widow has closed the bar for the week, for Jack's in his best suit, and love is in icy suspense until the thaw of family and friends can soften her dear heart with a saving grace come Christmas. That was written in 2003, and it refers to the death of the publican, a man who ran the pub called the Black Horse. And of course, the pump trough is the big stone trough outside where the horses would stop for a drink. Most English pubs in villages have something like that, somewhere to hitch the horses up to or water them. So that was my first serious poem, and I thought, oh, I like this, I'm going to do some more of this. So that's how I got here, speaking to you. Now I'm going to choose for the next one the poem that refers to this painting. I was staying with a friend in Vilas County in his summer home in Presque Isle, and I decided to paint with watercolor some of the trees in the backyard. And this tree is a bit odd. You can see it has a funny shaped top, so it's unique and it can only be the tree in Michael's yard. The poem is called Watercolor in the Rain. Never use watercolor in the drizzling rain of fall. Your paper swells, the color runs, and you can lose it all. Rain is good for everything, bodies, hair, and gardens. It's hard to paint, it's hard to draw, but softly melts the vision. It drives you inside to watch the scene graying, while all you can do is ditch your cup of water, make coffee, and wipe the dog's paws. Be content with the unfinished sketch. Those trees love the rain. It made them into what you put on your slowly drying paper. Let it go. Sometimes you have to let go of a poem or let go of a painting. And I've been taking a class through a senior center about the music of the Mississippi. Songs that are sung and played in all the towns and villages down both banks of the Mississippi, from its source all the way to the Gulf. It's been a really interesting course to take. And all of the songs are sung by people. And so I thought to myself, wait a minute, the river sings its own song. So here's my poem, Music of the Mississippi. I hear the music the river makes, its trickles, splashes, deafening dams, boat engines and horns, paddle wheels and the opening of lock gates, their aging ratchets clicking, and the rush of the water filling the chamber. Only the nighthawks hear the ice crack at midnight. The doe and her twins lap the edges, crunching on gravel at dawn, before children flood into the swing sets, slides and monkey bars and the playground. Birds song, coyotes calling the pups home, owls finding each other, gulls screaming over the trash heaps, kids squealing as they swim. Over the bluffs, the eagles scream and fall quickly to the jumping fish as a kayak swishes in a turn, dipping a quiet oar to steady up. The crew click your ticket just in time as the rain and thunder hit the August night. On the boat, cameras click as kingfishers dive, and frogs croak, and the empire builder crosses the bridge, its harmonic whistle carrying news of its arrival on time. The dredgers dig loudly, while the bricklayers and stonemasons tap and talk just as the fishermen do. Behind the windows, beer mugs are clicked, and wine glugs into fancy glasses where forks click on plates. Sudden guns on ducks, cranes calling, geese cruising, checking on each other, to the splash of a water skier's fall. Along a small island beach, quietly, only the sunlit drip of rain from a tree limb, casting a bright rainbow. I had gone to a webcam on a river site on the Snake River and noticed a prism glinting in the middle of the water. And that's when I added the last line to my Mississippi poem, even though it's not the snake. So, as well as places, I like to think about people. And so I've got two poems about people. One is about Perry. When I was a medical visitor, I had a patient called Perry who lived in a nursing home, and he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't do anything at all. He had tremors. He had Parkinson's very badly and couldn't speak. Just attempted to a little bit, but he could never really talk to me. So makes a visit very long when you're the only one talking. But I always felt very fond of him. Not only is he gone, the nursing home is gone now too, but here is my little poem for Perry. Caring touches all the day and night spread like ripples across your life and mine. The memories of those ripples say, you were here, and so was I. You could not tell me how you were, so I had to think and speak for both of us. You were in this life with me, and I in yours. Thank you. It was a real gift to be able to visit Perry. I liked him enormously. He could smile. He couldn't speak, but he could smile. And we had some fun together. I would wheel him into another room and we would look at all kinds of things, watch other people and so. My second poem was written for a person. I went to a different poetry group and only one person came to it. And then suddenly, after we'd been talking for quite a long while, the two of us, a lady came in and sat down and started talking. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't ask us who we were. She didn't tell us who she was. She just started talking about something terrible that had just happened to her. She was really upset. It wasn't anything urgent. It was just having a huge effect on her. And I, at the same time as I was in that poetry group, I was also in our church's shawl ministry. And so it came to me on the spot, I should write a poem to be a shawl for her. So here's my poem called Shawl. I wrote it on the spot and I gave it to her. In the week you were conceived, God started to gather wool for your shawl. Soon it was washed, then it was carded. Angels spun it, and some were dyers. Some was left clean and white, and some was grey, some black, like the Jacob sheep it was from. The shuttle sang and rattled, and God wove in parts of shawls from your relatives from long ago. Black sheep, lambs, babies who never grew to maturity, scraps from sadness, bright, sturdy and elastic stretches from the wind in the trees, the water, both salt and fresh, and snow melt. Then God added plant fibers of food and flour, horsetail hairs, and the whiskers from mink and walrus, llama hair and octopus ink, rabbit fur and lion's mane, all woven in from and around your life. Patterns suggested by shadows grew out along with rays of light from glittering minerals and tapestries of ancient stories. Iron medallions of failure hung between strands of gentle velvet and leather from a cat of nine tails. For you are and always have been a part of history. Now you are making your own history. So feel the warmth when you need it and share the warmth when you meet someone who has forgotten their own shawl is there, made for them just as yours was and continues to be. So many patterns from the past, the present and the future. Your patterns, our patterns, their patterns. Claim and share the security and care of your own life. Your shawl has always been there. Again, it surprised me to be able to do that on the spot, but it was somewhere in me and I pulled it out and shared it. So that was a cool thing to do. Now, many of the things I like in my life are animals. And anybody who knows me can tell you I'm an animal fanatic. And when my son was growing up, I used to take him to an educational farm in Grafton called the Family Farm. It backs onto the freeway, and you can see the sign from the freeway. It's just north of County C on Port Washington Road. And one of the things that you could do there was you could sit in a hay wagon, be pulled by two heavy horses. Well, I fell in love on the spot with the horses. Their names were Dick and John. They've long since gone. They were Belgians, and they were followed by, I think, Percherons. They've had a variety of pairs of horses. And of course, sitting in a wagon being pulled by horses is wonderful because it's quiet, no engine. And if you're going across grass, you don't even hear their hooves. You just hear the creaking of the harness and the wheels of the wagon. So this was written for the pair. Two chests there are, so deep and square, drawing in the morning air. I tremble when I touch the hide that drips with sweat after the ride. The smell of leather fills your massive blowholes, making clouds of mist. My fist is dwarfed against your velvet muzzle that I've often kissed. No church has held, no cross enfolded, all the tenderness in your eyes. The way you'll work together, love your driver, mourn when either dies. You, my darlings, hoof and harness, braided tail and bitten steel, are made of star stuff like the peonies and the monarch and the wheel. I look no further for the cradling of my soul in this wild world. You have pulled my sagging spirit till its stiffened wings unfurled. And I will move in sturdy rhythm of gathering hope, up, away, and into all the world of sharing that you swing me with your sway. There's that rolling, swaying motion of a horse in harness. And I just felt that so strongly behind them. They were beautiful, lovely brown horses. Now, I've always had cats, and once upon a time, I had a cat called Kabuki. He belonged to Gary Goldberg, who was a member of our church many years ago, many years ago, over 30 years ago. And Gary had to move, and he couldn't take his two cats with him. He had a mother and son, so he took the mother because she was elderly. He wasn't supposed to have a cat at all. And he gave me the baby, which was Kabuki, a chocolate-pointed Siamese. So this is an elegy to a cat. The stage is still set, old friend. The furniture is arranged, the lights are on, and where are you? Your toys hang limp from the door handles. Your bowl is waiting for you to bump it against the wall in the night, waking me up trembling. Your brush and comb sit there, made only of their dull materials and stiff with disuse. Small signs of your life among us are not promises, but sad taunts. Where is your cheerful cry? Why did you leave and stop the thundering across the floorboards, the crazy saloon bar reckless dancing? I still need you to warm the spot by my head at night. I still want to be careful of you, to look where I'm going, and to be sure you're safe before I turn out a light or leave. The stage is empty. and there will never be another show like that or another star like you. And yet I still wait in the front seat to honor our understanding that we played to each other's full house nightly. And you were the best. Your loyal love lingers and keeps me strong. You gave more than I knew, and I am humbled now in my emptiness to know you held me, not I you at all. That was written in 2005. And then I want to jump to something a bit more lively. This is also a memory from being with my Canadian aunt. My mother's brother married a Canadian, Irish-Canadian woman, and they lived in Vancouver. And I visited her after he died. And we went up Grouse Mountain and sat at the top where the ski lift drops you off. And I became very fond of ravens in my time in the Northwest. They're very sturdy birds, very bright and brilliant, very harsh sounding. And this was written only a couple of years ago. Ravens. Ravens haunt the wintry woods, old citizens known to Arab, Briton, Jew, and Haida, using survival language and outliving skirmishes, broodings, and wild winds, moving from year to year and tree to tree, cautious, playful, and canny, in the pageantry of their own carnival, chuckling through it, sure of themselves. They're very sturdy birds, ravens. And to keep in a somewhat humorous vein, I'd like to read about the ducks. At the South Shore Park Marina, I like to go and see who's floating on the water. Mergansers, tuxedo ducks, I call the black and white ones, all kinds of different black and white ducks, a lot of fun. So here we go. This was written in 2012. Down by the docks, there are ducks in tuxes. All of our sisters have watched them each spring. All of us sisters. The ducks have sisters. The sisters have misters. And the weather gets misty, like our eyes in the cold wind. They all look the same, but each spring, who knows which sisters bounce on the waves in the blizzards and sleet, which misters will find them this spring, which sisters will see them and tell each other that the ducks are in tuxes down by the docks. I've always thought of them as tuxedo ducks when I can't remember a bufflehead from a Scotia. So it's just laziness to call them that. Naturally, some of my thinking and my writing has a spiritual bent. I think that's true of all of us who belong to our church. The spirituality that we provide ourselves with, and sometimes we refer to previous beliefs or haunting memories of church from before we became Unitarians, some of us. And I'm not crazy about empty rituals, and so I can get pretty critical. And you can use poetry to be critical. So this is not very pleasant, but it's how I felt at the time, 3 years ago. Jesus the Jew is killed again, a Lenten contemplation. The annual ritual of wilderness, followed by trial and death, is on us again this spring. It will end in chocolate eggs. Every birthday leads to the same end, the trial of life, then death, then the next spring, and the chocolate business will continue. But don't get any on the altar cloth. That would be followed by a trial, as if a clean white cloth solved everything, but the Easter business will continue. Shall we gather at the river to wash the clean white cloth so the annual ritual can continue? It will end in the wilderness. Is there a Jew in your heart who knows God well? Perhaps the rabbis have the answers. The shuls will continue. There are always rules about the whiteness of the cloth and the ingredients of the eggs. The rules will continue. Pray like you were told. See if it helps. The chocolate eggs will still be there. Sometimes I get really fed up with the perpetual repetition of Christmas or Easter, even the other holidays that aren't religious. But there's something empty about going through the motion if you're not really in the mood for it. So it's okay to be bitter in a poem. I give myself permission to do that. But usually my religious poems are a bit more positive, like the next one. This is one of my favorites. And when Elaine Perasula was our interim ministry, I gave her a copy because she liked it. I think I read it in a service that we had. My God is like a lioness. Occasionally I feel a huge lick upside my head. I think it's my lover finally arriving late in life, or a good job, or a windfall, a gift. But it's just her way of picking me up, giving me hope, and dumping me back at a different angle, still glowing, wet, clean and loved, warm in the family. But then the firm grip at the nape, and I think I've done something terrible, failed, sinned, fallen. But all the time she's just moving her charges out of danger. I think I'll pay attention and mind her. She feeds me. I can live with mysterious strength until I know more. And I think that's my spirituality. I live with mystery and wait to know more. And maybe someday I will. Who knows? It's quite possible. It could happen. Continuing to think about feelings, a close harmony is my next poem. It's been a difficult year, and living alone, it's very quiet most of the time. A close harmony. This was written a year ago. Numb from news and winter, lying down at night in unwelcome despair, wondering if I had lost it, lost my mind. In that low point, a memory and small thought came to me, that as I lay worrying and alone, somewhere out on the prairie, the train whistle is carried on the wind. There may have been nobody listening, but it saved my sanity. That rich, broad exhalation, close harmony, at a distance, happening in my isolation, a certainty, like the sun and moon and the number 15 bus today. And the moment passed. And that's a direct reference to the Empire Builder, which crosses the Mississippi at La Crosse on a railway bridge. So that's where that came from. And Emerging Cicada is another wildlife poem. I'll find my page. No, it's not there. I have to look for it. Emerging Cicada. 58. That's why I can't find it. Okay. This poem was written in 2007, but it came out of an event that happened when my son was quite a small boy. We were walking back from having gone swimming at Shorewood High School, and he was in elementary school at the time. We crossed the grass at the front of the school to come back onto Capitol Drive, and I saw something on a tree, and we stopped to watch. And we saw a cicada coming to life. And so this is the poem I wrote subsequently, because it seemed to me a great metaphor as well. Sometimes I get a glimpse of what we might be if nature or the spirit took its course, and we stayed away from clothing and hairdressers, or moved out, or started using a new language. This was such a day. When I got a glimpse I needed, halfway up a tree trunk, as I walked by, I saw a small, dull, dry, brown object, and knew right away to stop and watch. More slowly than these words emerge, seeming as slow as the turning of a sunflower head on a bright day, one leg at a time, over 40 silent minutes, they came into being before us, a pale green creature. Climbing out of the split shell of its beetle past, just as we all should, not drawing any attention from the birds, the young cicada stepped like Cinderella. If you looked away and looked back, there was progress, but like the climbing moon, if you kept watching, you couldn't discern any movement at all. No fanfare apart from this shared memory and our secret delight as our wondrous hearts leapt, all of it awesome, especially the smooth and indiscernible slow pumping up of the crumpled wings to full length, ending in a perfect winged buzzer of hot days and nights. There had been born before us a new version of life above ground, the empty shell of before, hanging dry and limp, and as useless as an idea outgrown. I have outgrown many ideas. I hope I've dumped them all. I want to read some poems by other people, and I'm going to finish my own poems with one more cute poem about a dog. I was walking behind my house in the park, deep snow, and a man was with a dog. And so I asked him, I said to him, someone looks like they're having fun. And his response prompted this poem. Old Nan. There she goes, old Nan rolling over, blissfully imprinting and erasing her snow angel. Her long bumpy spine, tail and legs, paws and snout, sneezing in joy. No shovel required, dancing with every muscle, stretching and curling, toes, nose, tail, flail, stop, shake, run, done. Now I'd like to read you some poems by other people as well, so I'm going to choose two World War I poets that I became very fond of once I discovered them. Both Englishmen. One of them is a conversation between a dead man and his friend who is still living. The man used to be a farmer, and Houseman lived in an area surrounded by farms, so it makes a lot of sense. Is my team ploughing? Now I first came across this poem as a song cycle sung by a wonderful baritone who I witnessed singing it at a concert in Salisbury, actually, in England. Is my team ploughing? The first stanza is by the dead man, and the second one is a response. And so it goes, every other stanza. Is my team ploughing that I was used to drive and hear the harness jingle when I was man alive? Aye, the horses trample, the harness jingles now. No change, though you lie under the land you used to plough. Is football playing along the river shore with lads to chase the leather, now I stand up no more? Aye, the ball is flying, the lads play heart and soul. The goal stands up, the keeper stands up to keep the goal. Is my girl happy that I thought hard to leave? And has she tired of weeping as she lies down at eve? Aye, she lies down lightly. She lies not down to weep. Your girl is well contented. Be still, my lad, and sleep. Is my friend hearty now I am thin and pine? And has he found to sleep in a better bed than mine? Yes, lad, I lie easy. I lie as lads would choose. I cheer a dead man's sweetheart, never ask me whose. The other poem is by Henry Reed, and you may have heard a couple of lines of this spoken by the detective Thursday in the Endeavour series. It's called Naming of Parts, and it was written in 1942 by Henry Reed. Today we have naming of parts. Yesterday we had daily cleaning, and tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing. But today we have naming of parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all of the neighboring gardens. And today we have naming of parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper sling swivel, whose use you will see when you are given your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch, which is always released with an easy flick of the thumb. And please do not let me see anyone using his finger. You can do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them using their finger. And this you can see is the bolt. The purpose of this is to open the breech. As you see, we can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly backwards and forwards, the early bees are assaulting and fumbling the flowers. They call it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring. It's perfectly easy if you have any strength in your thumb, like the bolt and the breech and the cocking piece and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got. And the almond blossoms silent in all of the gardens, and the bees going backwards and forwards, for today we have naming of parts. I think those poems are remarkable. There's a bitterness and a reality about them. And that's what life was like between 1914 and 1918, very sadly. And I want to read Pied Beauty to you from Gerard Manley Hopkins. He is a staggering poet. His use of words is extraordinary. He was a Jesuit. I think he was an unhappy Jesuit. He wanted to be a hard person in God's service, working hard, but it actually wore him out. He died fairly young from being exhausted, actually. But here's his poem, Pied Beauty. Pied meaning multicolored. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple colour as a brindled cow, for rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim. Fresh fire-cold chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow and plough, and all trades, their gear and tackle and trim. All things, counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle, dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him. Fabulous use of language, I think. Just wonderful. Reminds me a lot of Whitman. And Whitman's poem, For You, is the one I would recommend, For You. And I would like to read one more poem straight out of our hymnal. It's by William Blake, a visionary, a most unusual man with a most unusual life. And this is his poem set to music by Ralph Vaughan Williams, who died when I was 10. And William Blake wrote it, and he died in 1827. Every night and every morn, some to misery are born. Every morn and every night, some are born to sweet delight. Joy and woe are woven fine, clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. It is right it should be so. We were made for joy and woe, and when this we rightly know, safely through the world we go. I thank you for your attention, and if you've posted any questions in the chat, that's something that Mark Muller is going to field so that I can answer any questions, or I'd love to hear any comments you have about any of the poetry. So thank you for your attention. And I hope you get outside today and are able to see the poem that is spring happening all around us, constantly on the move. How delightful. Thank you so much. See you in church as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.
Okay, I've been able to stop the screen share. I will, for some reason, oh, here's the chat. Are you able to see it also, Juliet?
Yes, I can. There aren't any questions on it, so we can just have people raise their hands on their screens if you like. Silence. You're dumbfounded with it all. Hi, Anne.
Hey, Juliet. Oh,
Hey.
that was so lovely and just brilliant. I mean, my goodness.
I'm glad you enjoy them. That's good for me.
Just lovely. You know, that you've captured these memories so well, and that just makes such a rich life now as well. After, you know, you can relive all of these times in your words. It's really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, Barbara. You need to unmute yourself if you're going to ask a question or make a comment.
Got it.
There you go.
That was so beautiful, Julia. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's fun. Anytime you want to read poetry together, let me know.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a frequent writer myself, and it's just such a wonderful way to express the awesomeness of what's around us, and also the terror and the challenge and everything. Yeah, it's just such a range that we're asked to absorb as humans, and poetry is such a great way to explore that, and express and live through it. It's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And have you been on the Empire Builder yourself? The train that goes across the country?
Yes, I have.
I thought you might. Yeah.
In fact, I was sent, I went to San Francisco on that train, and a friend I was living with sent us with some special cookies, sort of marijuana laced.
Oh my. We know roughly when that happened then, don't we? In the 60s, right?
We didn't realize it at the time, but we had a good trip. Yeah, that train is a really, when you think about all of the wonders that it helped to make happen, but also all the tragedy that happened through it. It's so, I don't know, it evokes a lot of mixed feelings. But
yeah, it has a lot to be responsible for with the Chinese workers dying and all the misplaced, displaced native people. Yeah, but it's a great experience to use it. And I love that sound of the train.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite poem, Juliet, or couldn't you possibly?
I think My God is Like a Lioness is my favorite, because you see a lioness licking one of her cubs and can practically lift it off the ground just by licking it, and their eyes get squiffy as they're pushed to one side. And then she's just doing her job, you know, but it must be a bit overwhelming to have a big head above you picking you up in the jaws, you know. It's a very big, scary image, but endearing at the same time. Anne.
Would it be possible for you to take pictures of your poems from your book?
No, but I'd be glad to send you the ones you're interested in. I'll send you a list of all the ones that I read, and then if you recognize any of those titles, then you can just pick what you want.
Oh, great.
Or I could bring my book to your house and we can drink coffee and...
Absolutely. Let's plan that.
Let's do that. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Now we're all vaccinated, we can do all kinds of things, right?
Yes, we can.
All kinds of bravery going on.
Have you taught poetry at all, Juliet?
No, I haven't. No, I've been a museum docent, but that's about the extent of my education. And I was a children's librarian in a previous part of my life.
Good, so you're feeling all right. I think next week we can have people indoors.
Hello, Juliet. We just got another family phone call to make, so we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I'm glad you tuned in. Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Richard and his wife live in my hometown, and I joined my hometown historical society. And as it turns out, they are running it. And Rosemary was my first boss in 1967 at my hometown library. We're still in touch after all these years.
It was a beautifully constructed collection, Juliet. I loved the flow of piece to piece. I got a Mother's Day call in the middle, so I didn't hear it all. But of what I heard, I loved the transitions that you made.
Oh, good.
Well
thanks.
done.
You can probably see it again on YouTube. I think it's going to be up for a week. Usually the forums are. So if there was anything you missed, and if there's anything you're interested in a copy of, just let me know and I'll send you one in the mail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube much longer than a week.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Fame at last.
I don't know when they're going to start taking them down, but
okay.
I think most of them are still there from the whole year.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Overwhelming.
Stop the live streaming, I think, at this point, and people can still talk